G'day, welcome to the Happy Families podcast. Minimum age legislation for social media is just around the corner now, only a couple of months to go. And this week, it's Child Protection Week. There are so many issues that are occurring that cause us concern for the safety and the well-being of our children, whether it's happening online, whether it's happening in childcare centres, or whether it's happening in real life, things like bullying and challenges at school. And one of my favourite people to talk to about these kinds of difficulties is Dr Katrina Lines. Katrina is the CEO of Act for Kids, and today we're going to address those issues and more with some brand new data from a survey that Act for Kids have done, looking at what kids need as this social media minimum age legislation gets closer. Stay with us. Hello, welcome to the Happy Families podcast, real parenting solutions every day. This is Australia's most downloaded parenting podcast. My name is Dr. Justin Coulson, and this week it's Child Protection Week. As a result, we wanted to get into some stuff that's going to be helpful for you as you discover and decide for yourself how you can help your children to be safe. Today, my special guest, Dr. Katrina Lines, the Chief Executive Officer of Act for Kids. Katrina joined Act for Kids back in 2006 and has been working ever since, delivering social services and clinical services at the individual, organisational and community level to help our kids to be safe. Katrina is a clinical psychologist, more than 20 years of experience and a PhD in children's cognitive, social and emotional development, and postgrad quals, by the way, in governance, business and education. Pretty well qualified to have the conversation we're going to have. Katrina, thanks so much for being on the podcast. Before we talk about this new study that you've done, looking at connection in real life for kids, I really want to ask you about a couple of hard things. In the news over the last several months, we've been hearing about devastating. I don't know if there's another word for it. Devastating, horrific, appalling behaviour by adults towards children in childcare centres. We've had names released of men who have committed offences over the last several years, and most recently, we found out about the horrific behaviour of a man in Melbourne. But there's also been news that's been kept relatively quiet compared with the men, looking at some horrific torture and abuse in childcare centres from a number of women in Sydney. Can you just talk a bit about what's going on? And I guess more to the point, you and I have both been asked about this a lot over the last few months. What are we supposed to do about it? Because I don't think we can legislate around this.
No, it's a community problem. We need to work together as a community to protect kids. And so it's not a government responsibility, as you said, Justin, to legislate against it, because if people want to do the wrong thing, they'll just find a way to do the wrong thing.
Yeah, I keep on hearing people say, oh, shouldn't we get men out of childcare? Won't that solve the problem? And I can't think of anything worse. Your response, your reaction?
Well, as a psychologist and someone who's looked at child development for her whole career, I think that is the silliest thing I ever heard, because children need male and female role models. So we need to make environments safe for them, and fun and nurturing, which is our responsibility as a community, rather than looking to the government to solve the problem for us.
Yeah. Safeguarding is so important, and yet trying to put legislation in just makes more hoops and sort of. I don't think it actually improves the situation. It just makes it more difficult, and you're never going to be able to stay on top of compliance anyway. What about these childcare workers in Sydney? These women. Why do you think that the news media didn't pick up on the torture and the neglect and the abuse, like the photographs and the filming and the laughter and delight that these women seem to take from hurting these kids?
I think it's not as newsworthy potentially as, serial child sexual abuse, which is an awful thing to say, but it just hasn't seemed to grab the attention. And we certainly haven't heard any rhetoric about women, leaving childcare as a result of any of those revelations from Sydney or the alleged incidents in Sydney. I think it highlights an issue for workers in childcare generally. They're generally poorly paid, struggle to have everybody mandatory trained, and they're not a supported workforce. Staffing ratios are, not looked at properly, and so there's too few workers for the number of kids that they're caring for. And so I think that's a bigger problem than whether it's males or females doing the wrong thing. We need to be supporting workforce to be able to know what to do and to be able to care for kids and feel supported themselves.
Whenever I give a talk to a childcare organisation and I'm doing some staff development, I'm just in love with these people who do such a great job. They're, generally speaking, their hearts are big and they love these kids and do such good work. And so often such thankless work. I just think they're a wonderful workforce, and it's such a shame that a shame feels like I'm downplaying it. It's just devastating that there are people who are doing these kinds of things and bringing an entire industry into disrepute when there are so many good people doing such good work. Anyway, that's not the reason that we've really got you here, although I think, like I said, it's appropriate for Child Protection Week. Recently, you've commissioned a study, 300 Australian kids aged 10 to 16, looking at connection in real life and connection online. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. I'm always fascinated when data comes through. When you had a look at what these kids were asked and what they were responding with, what did you find curious about what the kids were saying about this Act for Kids research?
Well, we were interested because we've got the social media ban looming in December, and so we wanted to see, how connected kids were online and what they really preferred. We were actually stunned because 41% of kids said they would prefer to spend time with their family in person, compared to 15% who said they would prefer to go online. That was their preferred kind of way of connecting with the world. So that's really quite surprising. We thought more kids would be wanting to go online, and 3/4 of the children told us that they felt most connected to their family when they're talking in person about their day, even though almost half of them spend at least an hour a day talking to someone online.
Yeah, so 3 quick responses to this, and I'd love to get your reaction. First off, OECD research published a couple of months ago, plus some data that came out of Macquarie Uni with Dr Brad Marshall and Professor Wayne Warburton. Both of them found that in Australia, we're finding that adolescents spending in recreational screen time an average of 9 hours per day just staring at their screens. Those numbers are astonishing. So when I hear you say that, it kind of, there's like this clash between kids saying, well, here's what I really want, but here's what I'm actually doing. The second thing that it prompts for me is I bet there's a lot of parents who are listening to that data that you've just shared and saying, well, hang on, whenever I say to my kids, why don't you get off the screen and come and spend some time doing this thing with us? The kids don't get off the screen. They whinge and they whine and they mope. They're so compelled to be on their screens. And then the third thing that popped into my head was once the kids do get off the screens, they really do enjoy themselves. And it's very, very rare if you say to the kids, what was the most fun that you had this week? It's very rare that they'll say, oh, when we were all staring at our screens sitting on the couch in the living room, that was awesome. Like they usually talk about the fact that you get out and you throw a ball around or you jump on the trampoline or you cook that thing together in the kitchen. That's the stuff they cling to, the stuff that they want. They want the connection. But how do you I guess, respond to that disconnect where the kids are saying, yeah, I want this in the survey, but in real life, if my parents ask me to get off the screen, I'm going to fight and whinge and whine about it?
I think there's a point in the middle where you join them where they're at, and so there's their online world for themselves, and then there's the bit in the middle where you join them where they're at, and then there's the offline world where you do stuff like cook together and have fun. Nearly 3/4 of the kids told us that they felt positive about their close adult being in the same room when they were online, and 17% of the young people we surveyed said they actually felt safer. But that we asked them how many, we asked them, how often is it that you do have an adult in the room with you? And only 10% of them said they do. And so overwhelmingly, the kids told us that they wanted adults to join them in their online world and play games with them or do something with them so that they can connect. And so that's that middle space of adults joining kids in their world that I think we're missing.
Interesting that you say that because I'm not big on joining my kids in the online world. I don't like social media. I stay away from it as much as possible. I don't game. But my son-in-law has sort of taken up that role with my youngest kids who really do like being online. And they look forward to going over and hanging out with their big sister and their brother-in-law because, he's an adult. He's in his mid-20s. My youngest is only 11. And they get to play all of those games and be in that online world. And they have so much fun. I love watching it from a distance. It still isn't enough to tempt me into it. And I'm finding other ways to connect with my kids in real life, to steal a phrase from you. But I think that idea that you've suggested is really valid. It also illustrates to me that, or at least the way that I'm doing it, it highlights that when the kids have got good adults in their lives, it doesn't really matter whether it's you or another good, safe adult that they can trust and rely on. They're getting those socialization needs met, and they're having that third space or that meeting in the middle occur, which satisfies their needs and helps them to feel like their online experiences are able to be engaged with in healthy ways. Does that make sense? Am I getting that right?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. The clear messages that we heard from kids was that they wanted to connect with their families, but there is a disconnect, I think, in that generation gap where the children's world is an online social world now, and that a lot of adults don't understand it. Although I think the example of your son-in-law is that younger adults and younger parents do understand it because that's kind of their world as well, and so they want adults, their close adults, to like the things that they're doing and be interested in the things they're doing. And that's the same as whether they're playing sports or they're playing Fortnite, so it's the same kind of emotion that's driving kids wanting the connection.
Well, big changes are coming after the break. I'm going to ask Dr. Katrina Lines what message we need for families to wrap their head around with the minimum age legislation coming into effect later this year. And we're also going to talk about finding time to connect in real life, since that's what the kids really want. Dr. Katrina Lines, the CEO of Act for Kids. Your recent survey, Let's Connect in Real Life, IRL. Pretty soon, there's going to be legislation that is designed to prevent children under the age of 16 from being on social media. I'd love to get your take. I've been interviewed about this endlessly. What's your take, though, on how parents and carers can guide their children as this transition occurs?
Well, I think, following from what I was saying before, Justin, adults don't necessarily give the social world of children online the weight that it has for them. And so we think that switching off might be difficult for them, but I think that young people may be very fearful about it and worried and anxious about being cut off from their friends and their network when the ban comes into effect. And that we really need to be acknowledging that and trying to understand that and support them through it. And so I think opening up conversations now, not leaving it till December when the ban is about to come into place, and really listening to what their worries are and showing them that you want to understand and you want to help, asking them what they're most worried about and what they think might help, and getting them to identify some ideas. I also think that some young people are, their whole social world is online, and that they could have negative mental health impacts, and so parents and carers need to watch for those. So things like changes in eating and sleeping and mood as a result of the ban coming into place. So, open up those conversations, show your little listening, don't belittle the impact on them, show them you want to understand and you want to help.
It's curious to me when I think about what life was like before social media. Most of us had cordless phones that were for the entire family, and kids would spend a lot of time on that phone talking with their friends. I think that private schooling means that we've got more people from a greater variety of places coming together for a school, which means that there's less opportunity for kids to pop out into the street and hang out with the local neighbours because they don't know them in the same way that they did. Like once upon a time, everyone went to the neighbourhood school. That's not the case so much anymore. Not having social media, as much as I'm broadly in favour of this legislation and think that it's a good thing for our younger population who are vulnerable and unfortunately are being harmed way too much by what goes on social media, there are some very real challenges that we're going to be confronted with because of the way the world has shifted in the last 15 to 20 years. I love your advice around that. Thank you for sharing that. One last question before I let you go. Your survey is called Let's Connect IRL, Let's Connect in Real Life. Kids are demonstrating a really strong desire for this in spite of the fact that the online world is so endemic. It's so intertwined with their lives. When you think about connection and you think about how busy parents and caregivers are, what would your top 1 or 2 tips be for parents who really just want to find the time to connect in real life with their kids but are struggling because either the kids are a bit oppositional or life is really busy?
Look, it can be really, really hard. I think if you just focus on the day-to-day things you do and trying to be present and listening to your kids while you're doing it. So in the car, driving home, or when you're cooking dinner. I think you were talking before about cooking something together and making things fun that are just day-to-day activities, but you actually do them with your kids. No one's on their phone. And then, planning family fun time that's quality time, but it doesn't need to be, it can be once a week that you're planning and looking forward to doing something together. But, little kids in particular just want to come and help you cook dinner. And I know it can be a pain when everyone's just got home and you got lunchboxes everywhere and you're trying to get kids to do stuff, but just taking a deep breath and letting them hang out with you while you're doing those things means that you get the things done, but you're actually connecting with your kids as well.
Yeah, kids spell love Time.
Absolutely. Look, my kids are grown up now, but when they were young, I'd have 3 of them in the afternoon all clamouring just to have this conversation. And my oldest daughter said, right, I'm going to get the timer out. So we had this kitchen timer and they would time each other. So they had their own allotted time for me to listen to them. And, my head was spinning because I had to make dinner and put the washing on and blah, blah, blah. But it was actually a kid-generated, really good strategy.
Yeah, it's so funny, though, because when it's going on, you're kind of going, oh, my goodness, I don't have headspace for this. Would you all just stop making noise so I can do the important stuff and cook the meal? And you're like, oh, hang on, no, this is the important stuff. Yeah. The meal can wait. Dr Katrina Lines, the CEO of Act for Kids. Always enjoy our chats. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you, Justin.
The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. We have social admin and research support from Mim Hammonds. If you'd like any more details about the Act for Kids Let's Connect IRL study, we will link to that in the show notes. And for more information and resources, visit happyfamilies.com.au to make your family happier.